All right, attention all e-commerce defenders, system administrators, and security operations teams. Welcome to this Code Ninja Security Advisor. I'm your host, and as a senior white hat security researcher, I have to issue a critical alert today. We are currently dealing with a highly critical, actively exploited threat tearing through the Magento and Adobe Commerce ecosystem. We're tracking this one as CVE 2026-45247. In this explainer, I'm going to give you the exact technical breakdown of what's happening, exactly how the attackers are breaking in, and the immediate steps you absolutely must take to lock down your infrastructure. So let's get right to it.
Okay, let's start with this massive number right here, 9.8 out of 10. That is the CVSS base score for this vulnerability, placing it firmly, without a doubt, in the critical category. But what does a 9.8 actually mean for you on the ground? Well, it means we're looking at an unauthenticated remote code execution, or RCE, vulnerability. It requires absolutely zero privileges, no stolen passwords, and absolutely no user interaction. An attacker doesn't need to phish an administrator or trick anyone. They literally just need an internet connection and a vulnerable target. The front door to your server is essentially left wide open.
And what exactly is that front door they're walking through? It's the Mirasvit full-page CacheWarmer extension for Magento 2. Specifically, we're talking about any version before 1.11.12. And honestly, what's deeply ironic about this is that CacheWarmers are supposed to be this boring, behind-the-scenes performance plumbing, right? They're just designed to pre-populate pages so your storefront feels lightning fast for your customers. But because of this critical flaw, this incredibly ordinary extension has been completely weaponized, effectively turning your storefront's cache into a direct gateway for total server compromise.
Let's walk through the timeline, because the speed of this crisis is honestly staggering. Security researchers over at SANSEC originally discovered the flaw back on April 24th. And privately notified Mirasvit. To their credit, Mirasvit turned around a patch incredibly fast on May 25th. But here's where the clock just completely runs out on us. Literally the next day, May 26th, the vulnerability was publicly disclosed, and active exploitation began immediately in the wild. By June 3rd, CISA added this to their known exploited vulnerabilities catalog, the KEV, mandating a federal patching deadline of June 6th. Guys, that is a blistering 3-day turnaround for federal agencies.
So, the absolutely crucial point here is this. The primary objective of this explainer, and of coordinated vulnerability disclosure in general, is immediate mitigation. We are broadcasting this intelligence right now to force vendor patching across the private sector and slam shut the exploit window that is currently wide open. If your team is sitting around waiting for your next quarterly maintenance window to patch your Magento store, you're already too late. Your maintenance window is right now.
Now, before we get into the actual mechanics of the exploit payload itself, we need to pause for a quick communication link setup. We are operating in a live, active threat environment right now, and I need to ensure this intelligence is actually reaching the defenders who need it most. So consider this a secure perimeter check. Do you copy? To establish our secure comms link today, I need you to do two quick things. First, subscribe to @cybertech79 and make sure you enable your notifications. In today's threat landscape, having real-time threat intelligence isn't some nice-to-have luxury. It is a fundamental baseline security necessity. Second, hit the like button on this advisory. I'm going to treat that as your formal acknowledgement of receipt for this intel. Okay, secure comms established. Let's dig into the actual code. Okay, so here is the core mechanic behind the entire breach, CWE 502, also known as deserialization of untrusted data. Now, in modern web applications, programs constantly take raw data, reconstruct objects from it, and just blindly assume those objects are safe. The Mirasvit extension uses a standard cookie to represent its cache warming state. But the fatal flaw here? The application carelessly takes attacker-controlled data straight from that cookie and passes it directly into PHP's native unserialized function, without restricting which classes can actually be instantiated. You are essentially asking your application to rebuild its core behavior using instructions supplied by an adversary. It's a disaster.
This perfectly illustrates the exploit path. Normally, a standard CacheWarmer cookie is just doing its job, helping to render pages for different currencies or specific visitor types. It's harmless. But contrast that with the weaponized payload. Threat actors are sending an HTTP request directly to the storefront carrying a highly malicious base64 encoded serialized PHP object right inside that exact same cookie field. And because this happens directly on the storefront itself, which is the one part of your business that absolutely must remain exposed to the public internet, defenders can't just easily hide it behind an admin panel or a VPN.
Now, once that malicious cookie is ingested by the server, the attacker needs a way to actually turn that data into executable code.
They do this using what we call gadget chains, which are already available in Magento and its underlying dependencies. Threat researchers at Imperva have observed attackers actively leveraging classes from the widely used Monolog logging library, specifically targeting components like the syslog UDP handler and the buffer handler. They string these chains together to invoke native PHP execution functions like system and current. And right now, they're actively firing basic test commands like id and uname a-a. They're doing this just to validate that they have remote code execution before they drop their much heavier destructive malware.
And please make no mistake, this is not just some theoretical exercise happening in a security lab. Imperva's threat intelligence confirms active, ongoing targeting in the wild as we speak. The telemetry shows threat actors are primarily going after business and gaming sites right now. And the geographic spread? It's entirely global, but we are seeing very heavy concentrations of attacks hitting infrastructure in the United States, the United Kingdom, France, and Australia. They are actively scanning, they are testing the doorknobs, and if you're running a vulnerable version, they're walking right in.
Section 1. The Enterprise Blast Radius. Let's talk about what happens after they get in.
You know, it is incredibly tempting for Windows administrators to look at a Magento advisory and immediately file it away under Linux and PHP problems. But doing that is a massive mistake. Your modern enterprise is a complex web of hybrid dependencies. Attackers do not care about operating system tribalism. A compromised Magento storefront is really just a beachhead for them. Once they have code execution there, they can easily pivot into your CI/CD pipeline secrets, they can abuse Entra ID identities connected to the store, they can manipulate data exports feeding into your Windows-based ERP systems, or even grab credentials to access your Azure Blob storage. The blast radius expands from one single e-commerce plugin to your entire interconnected business network in a heartbeat.
Section 2. The Mitigation Protocol. Here is your incident response plan.
Knowing about the threat is only half the battle, right? Now we actually have to execute. Here is your rigorous 4-step remediation protocol. Step 1. Audit your environments. Keep in mind, the CacheWarmer might actually be bundled inside other Mirasvit packages you bought, so you need to look deep. And yes, that includes your staging and disaster recovery servers. Step 2. Update immediately to version 1.11.12. Step 3. If you literally cannot patch this very second, deploy a web application firewall virtual patch to inspect and block any malicious serialized HTTP requests. And Step 4. Hunt for compromise.
Let's double-click on that last step for a second, because the harsh reality of incident response is this. Patching alone does not evict an attacker who is already established in your network. Since this has been actively exploited since May 26th, you have to assume they beat you to the patch. You need to aggressively hunt through your web server and WAF logs for suspicious CacheWarmer cookie values. Specifically, you're looking for base 64 object markers. You need to scour your web directories for unexpected PHP files, hidden web shells, and totally unfamiliar admin accounts. A clean, fresh upgrade protects your future. It doesn't automatically explain your past. Now, you might be wondering why we issue these advisories and break down these critical exploits so publicly. It's because of the White Hat Coordinated Vulnerability Disclosure Code. Like the quote says, transparency is the only way to protect the perimeter. The bad guys, they already have the patch diffs, they already have the scanning logic built into their tools. By bringing these exploit mechanics out of the shadows and into the light, we arm the actual defenders with the exact intelligence needed to close the gap and secure the network. Because at the end of the day, you have a right to know exactly what is threatening your systems.
That federal deadline leaves absolutely no room for corporate bureaucracy. The exploit is out there, it is completely unauthenticated, and the risk is critical. So execute your emergency change management protocols right now, apply the patch, and proactively hunt for threats lurking in your environment. You have to ask yourself, will your storefront be the one they successfully pivot from, or will it be the one where their attack stops dead in its tracks? I'm your host for this Code Ninja Security Advisory. Stay secure.